Okay. Hey, anyone who's there or anyone who's not there, there is StarCraft, and with me, I'm Perch. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you today? Been a long time since we talked.
Oh, way too long. I basically, you know how it is. I didn't know. I was trying to wait. Oh, let's see what other streaming devices and everything are going to be utilized. And well, I got a little too, took a little too long to get on the bandwagon.
Now we've all been busy. I think there's been so much activity. I mean, in the time since we last talked, I think all the various factions within comics have at least changed sides 4 or 5 times. So life is quick.
Yeah, don't get me started on all of that. It's just insane. Just a second, I'm going to send and put out a tweet to let people know. One second. All right, and there we go. Well, the reason why I wanted you on board is mainly because of oh, apparently I already got someone in the street in the chat right now. Hey, Bianca. Hey, Bianca fights the zombies. Wait, Dan subbed me. You from my channel? Don't you hate when that happens?
Hey, we should let's get some more people in here.
Yep. Hey, I guess I'll put the link in and see if anyone else wants to join. Have it be actually available for anyone just for once. So give me a moment. But yeah, the main reason why I definitely wanted you on board is, well, I definitely think you're one of the more saner heads that is currently around. Your recent videos, especially, can attest to that.
Old and boring. That's me. No, I think comics is a long business. It's been going on for a long time, and it's easy. It's better to take a long view of things. I think it's easy to get worked up in the heat of the moment. Everybody gets very emotional about things, but if you take the longer view of it, comics have been going on for decades and decades, and a lot of this stuff isn't terribly new. And so, if you take that perspective, it's doesn't always make anything better, but it does make things not be as dramatic and worse.
Right, definitely. And where I haven't been around as long as you have, for example, I definitely have been. I mean, how long have you been in the industry? Not only with the store, but as a fan.
I mean, I started collecting comics in the very start of the '80s. So let's see here.
Well, I was born. So you started collecting when I was born.
Yeah, we're I think '81 probably. So I mean, we're entering into 4 decades of comics here, and a shop at least three decades. So I mean, it's been a long time. I don't feel old, but I guess laying it out that way, I have to be old.
Oh boy, I bet. But yeah, with me, I actually was a casual fan. I don't know if I told you this. I was a casual fan for the most part. Like my first trades were either, I can't remember exactly what it was that I bought, but the first ones I ever read were these issues of the World Without a Superman that my grandmother had. Yeah, basically my first comics were after Superman died. Go figure.
Oh yeah. Oh wow. Okay, so that'd be like 92, 93 time frame. So yeah.
Thereabouts. Although I don't know if they were new or not. I just don't remember they were there. And eventually, I got some of my earlier comics. I remember getting were Life and Death of Captain Marvel. The Death World was out, and Return of Superman. I'm rubbing my mic on something. No, I'm not. I think it's just been acting up lately. Sorry. But yeah. Funky again. Right? Did I lose anyone?
No, but you do have some static going on there. Unfortunately, it sounds like.
I think that's again either my or my fan. But I'm sorry, guys. But do I sound any better?
You've just nailed it. So we'll just stick right here with this.
All right. But like I said, it was like a bunch of other comics, like
Sure.
the Cosmic Spider-Man, all that stuff. But then I went to college. got a bunch of my comics because there was like a local comic book store not that far from where what my dorm was. Is it still bad?
Nope, nope. You're just. I think there's a delay, of course, from the people in the chat. So,
All
um,
right, all right.
we're sticking with this. Yeah.
All right, all right. But yeah, so like I said, that's when I started buying, and then I just became a fan of whatever I liked. That was always what I believe, and I always figured that's how everyone was. Just buy what you like, ignore what you didn't like.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was easier to ignore what you didn't like back. I mean, social media changed things a lot for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't. I mean, when there wasn't social media, there wasn't really a platform for you to go and kind of dunk on things and roast on things and get kind of worked up about things. And it's not that the roasts or the dunks are necessarily bad. It's just that when you're exposed to that day in and day out, then the bad parts start to become more entertaining than the good parts, or at least start to be more of what everybody talks about. And so if you get more and more and more of that, it's very easy to post, very easy to put things out. It's easy to get kind of consumed by the bad. And I mean, the reality is there's so many comics being published every single month that there's going to be bad comics every month, at least for point of view. There's always going to be something bad to find with hundreds of comics out every month. That's just going to happen. So it's the state of the world we're in. I think hopefully things start to turn around here soon. There are still some good comics. It's just right now they're getting drowned out with a lot of noise.
Exactly. And one thing you said in one of your more recent videos that I definitely agree with, I watched during the early days of pre-Comicsgate, was the notion of certain people tagging in pros, or pro makes a statement that says like, oh, I don't care for this, or I hear about these people doing this, or I don't care for our president. And then people that are still currently within Comicsgate, I might add, would just be, I'm not going to name names, of course, would just be on blast like, fuck you, or screw you, or whatnot. And then they would be retaliated back by the pro or creator. And then they'd be like, see, look how evil they are, look how horrible they are, and that we should boycott them. It's like, idiots, you're the ones that made the problem in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. By the way, some of that static has come back, unfortunately, for your microphone there. So, but it's a tough situation, I think, in any case, and it's very easy. It's just the problem is, if you get angry about something, then you've got to be able to let it go. You've got to vent that anger, get it out, and then be able to move past it. And if you're in a group of people, whatever the label is, and I mean, there's so many different factions now. It's fault. Then nobody can ever really let go. You get angry, you vent, and you start to get over something. And then just as you've gotten over it, somebody else is mad and they draw you back in, you get mad again. You just kind of keep piggybacking off of that anger over and over and over. So that's unfortunately, it's a world we live in, and and everybody's a part of it. The other thing that's happened, I think, is that you've got the distance between fan and pro is much smaller than it used to be. Can talk to a pro can talk to a fan instantly. And so because of that, it's bringing instead of bringing the fans kind of up to the pros, it's bringing more of the pros down to the fans, in the sense that they're able to kind of quickly engage into that anger spectrum, and then they'll mouth off and say something they absolutely shouldn't be saying, for sure, which then feeds the problem, and it's a vicious cycle.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just with so many of them, like the way I always treat people on Twitter and all that stuff is I treat them no different than I would if I met them at a con. Unfortunately, I feel like there's so many people out there lately who the way they act for real would be going right up to them and be like, you know what? Actually, I got a good example. You'd be like that jackass who went up to Rob Liefeld and gave him a How to Draw the Marvel Way book.
Yeah. I mean, it's the accessibility in general. It's not a comics problem; it's a world problem. Certainly is an issue, and it's fun. I mean, right now we're really, as a society, we're into stunts. So I mean, people are going to go up and they're going to have these interactions in general, and we're beating them too far on one side. I mean, I think it goes both ways. I mean, the pros mouthed off and into the ring and punching. They're not helping either. That doesn't help at all. And so you just back and forth. You get a lot of this.
Oh, no kidding at all. And to be honest, it's like with comics currently, like just this week. Okay, I brought up Superman because I might as well get it out of the way. Good Lord, did the recent Superman issue piss me off? Did it piss you off at all?
I mean, it was painful. I just put a joke about it. I think I mean, from my perspective, it doesn't feel like Brian Bendis wants to write Superman. He wants to get into the Daily Planet and kind of the politics and the dialogue of the not the politics, but, real U.S. politics. I mean, like what Lois Lane is up to, what investigative journalism. He's a street level hero kind of writer, and so in this issue, you have a couple pages where Superman's having this big fight against Mongol, and it's Ivan Rice is killing it in the art, so it's blowing up, and it's good, and we're really getting into that. But before we can even really get into the fight, we immediately hop over to
the Daily Star. The Daily Star.
You immediately get into this drama of, oh, is he Superman? Wait, is he our Superman? Is it? And it's just like, good Lord. I mean, just this wall of text at you. And it just sucks the wind out of the big fight. And I don't think comics should just be fight, or anything like that. It just, but there has to be a balance. And it just feels very much like the writer would really much rather be doing that office stuff. And really the Superman part is almost an annoyance to the story he wants to tell.
Exactly. And the one thing that bothered me the most out of all that talk was that one guy who says, wait, why does Superman get to be a representative? I'm not trying to be racist, but I think it should be an Earth. It's like, wait a minute. This is the same universe where people were willing to accept either him or Muhammad Ali going out to box for us.
Yeah, I mean, the comment the guy says, I don't want to be racist about stuff, but I mean, it's like, well, okay, so he's not even of the same species. So it's not racist. That's a wrong term to follow. I mean, again, I get the story. He's wanting to kind of make it topical, and is he ours, and and all the rest. But this isn't a terribly interesting take on Superman. We've had this take before. We've had him reveal his identity before. We've had all this stuff before.
Even that long ago?
No, just a couple of years ago we had all this. So it's like, I mean, it feels like a retread of topics we got back in 2016, and I just don't know. I don't know why Bendis is doing this. It's a very strange take, especially strange given everything that's going on with You're the Villain, and we're getting ready for Death Metal and all these other pieces. Why we want to do an introspective look as to where Superman fits within human culture it's odd. It's an odd choice.
The only thing I will say, though, that really surprised me, the 2 pages in Superman Heroes was Booster Gold. I loved it. It felt like, oh my God, he gets Booster Gold a lot more than Tom King ever did.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I mean, Bendis shows signs. I mean, I think he knows on some level maybe how to write some of these characters. So I don't think it's not like he's a bad writer. I just feel he's uninterested in that in the actual story. He might be good at writing. Like he might be good at writing Superman fighting along and all this stuff. I mean, these Mongol were pretty good. But it feels like a writer, he's bored of that story. And it's not really what to do. So he always finds ways to veer away from it as fast as he can. And that seems to be the problem from my perspective anyway.
Yep, and one other example that I think is similar to that. He's setting up how Batman is being Batman, thinking like, oh, Superman is being an idiot. He's basically saying all the stuff a lot of the people are saying, but then he has Diana turn it around and say, I never took you one to be jealous, or whatever she said. And it's like, okay, really? You're basically have Batman spout out what a lot of the fans are thinking, and then dismiss it by saying, oh, Batman's just jealous.
Yeah, and it's an odd take. I mean, and I'll say that it does have a couple of fans. There are people who are interested in this take of Superman. It's just I think the world, from talking to other customers, from people on Twitter, and I don't want to turn into a big Bendis bashing session necessarily.
Oh no, I don't want to either.
No, but it is. There people are itching for a big heroic story. When Scott Snyder did his bit with Superman about 6 months ago or so, tried to escape the planet, the trap and set before him. People love that. It was like this big time Superman, and people are desperate for that, and they're not getting it.
Exactly. Or in the case of I think it was Snyder when he did Superman Unchained years ago. That's still one of the biggest wows I've ever seen from Superman in the past decade or so.
Yeah, I mean, I think an interesting character. I've done videos on him. I think there's a lot you can do. I think there's many stories to tell, but for whatever reason, Superman as a character seems to intimidate a lot of writers. They're just not sure what to do with him. Similar problems people have with Captain America. But I don't think Superman has to be that hard. I think you can make it work. And at the end of the day, it's just a shame that, you know, and maybe I'm wrong, but just the way that the stories come across, it really feels like Bendis would rather be writing, you know, the Daily Planet comic and the Lois Lane comic and the Jimmy Olsen comic and maybe a Metropolis PD comic, and just that's what he wants to do. And on some level, you got a big name, you're paying him a lot of money, but I mean, DC should consider at least putting him in charge of the street level heroes, giving him that set of titles, and get these big time, big name heroes into somebody else's hands.
The one thing I have to wonder is, he picked Superman. Why did he pick it? Was it just because of the Daily Planet stuff, or do you think he really wanted to bring Superman and maybe in his mind humanize him? Because that's something that I always thought is what he wanted to do is, and it does feel that way, especially with how cynical he wrote the Daily Star. It feels like he wants to bring more Marvel to DC.
Yeah, I mean, he was associated with Marvel for such a long period of time. Marvel was him, so I think he picked Superman over Batman. I think for many, Batman is kind of almost considered a gimme. It's you can put anybody on Batman and it would sell. That's a conventional wisdom. And I think Bendis wanted to prove that he could come in and he could make a title successful that wasn't an automatic seller. And I'm sure DC liked that idea too. They could put somebody else, maybe you could put King on Batman, and you could put kind of the no-brainer, this guy will for sure knock it out of the park, Bendis on Superman. The problem is Bendis has brought his kind of typical Bendis. And if you look at his work on Avengers and when he did Dark Reign and kind of all the different Marvel cycles that he did, he was really at his strongest when he was writing the Jessica Jones and the Ultimate Spider-Mans and the Luke Cages and kind of this more grounded hero. And he was weakest in many cases when he was doing things like the X-Men that were bigger than life or these other stories. His Iron Man was never really important.
Right, although his Doctor Doom was definitely very good.
Yeah, no, he can.
Oh no, I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say, and I think you look no further than how he had to nerf Doctor Strange to put him on the Avengers.
Yeah. I mean, he's a storyteller with ideas. I mean, I think he gets a lot of criticism. I mean, I'm there too, seeing his wall of text drives me nuts. But this just really feels like wrong place, wrong time. Bad fit kind of scenario. So I'm hoping he do something else. Unfortunately, he's very exposed with DC right now. He's trying to push the biggest of all villains in Leviathan. He's made it clear that's going to outlast whatever's going to go on with Death Metal and 5G and everything else. You've got him on Legion of Superheroes. You got him on the Young Justice League. You've got him on Superman. He owns a huge portion of DC, and most of those titles are all bigger than life kind of superhero action books, or they're supposed to be. And how this is all going to work over time, I don't know. But him on like Hellraiser and The Question, and yes, even something like Nightwing would probably be a much better fit. But here we are.
Yeah, but then, funny enough, when you look at how he wrote Batman and Batman Universe,
no, I agree. It's an odd mix, but he's shown that he can do street level well. DC's in a very strange place right now. I mean, at this point, we're just waiting for kind of Death Metal to come and go, and what that's going to look like. We're waiting for 5G to come and go, and what that's going to look like. So, I mean, it's really just. We're waiting to see what the aftermath, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if there's a shuffle, and there's some titles move around, and we'll see what that looks like.
Right. Now, here's something I want to ask you. Given what's gone on with Justice League and Doomsday Clock, and even in Thor, have you, from any contact you've had, heard any rumblings of a possibility, especially with Joe Quesada pretty much out the door, of Marvel and DC even toying with the idea of an indirect crossover?
Yeah, I don't think so. For 100 reasons, I don't see it happening. I mean, the parent companies are not going to allow that to happen. I do think the creators will tease things back and forth as kind of little nods to each other. I think that's fine, but AT&T and Disney, there's zero chance they're going to allow that to go on. It would muddle up the IP. They're still sorting out some issues from the last crossover in terms of where certain parts of the IP sit and everything else. Those comics and those panels become merchandising black holes where you can't use them other places because kind of they're both owned. There's just no way the parent companies are going to let them do that. So I think you will see lots of kind of little, almost passive aggressive attempts one way or the other of the companies acknowledging the other. But yeah, I say flat no. I see very little that has a less chance of happening.
So in other words, blame Joe Quesada for wasting all of our time before when we actually had a chance.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would have been much easier 5-10 years ago. In today's climate, I think it was going to be always hard with Disney in charge, and now with AT&T in the mix and AT&T having their own streaming service and all the rest, I think that is. I'm trying to think of anything that would be less of a possibility. I can't imagine it. I mean, Jeff Johns kind of coming over and becoming the new editor-in-chief at Marvel, I think, has a better chance.
Yeah, one can dream, though. I mean, I did love the teasing in Thor and Doomsday Clock and all that. It felt nice to do the teasing because I think we've been had teasing in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think both groups first, and they both kind of want to acknowledge that the other is out there on some level, but that's as far as it will go.
Again, it sounds like you really had that take on.
Yeah. Oh. Hey, your mic is actually quite a bit again, unfortunately.
How about now? I just picked it back up. Yeah, you're getting a lot.
Yeah, it's still pretty bad on there, unfortunately.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, you're good now. We'll just
okay. I know. I gotta get a better cord.
Yeah, these are the way it goes. Certainly when stream, but no, like we were talking about. I mean, it's an interesting time in comics for sure. A lot going on, a lot happening, and who knows where this is all going to go. But I think we're in for kind of very confusing. That's definitely
right. Going back to both sides of the industry, I think we really need to books where we're about the characters and good characters and art, like what DC Metal tried to do.
Yeah, I feel tragic to tell you. I can't hear what you're saying, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay, better now?
It's good.
Up about books with good characters, good art, good everything across the board. Just here and let's make a mini event.
Yeah.
Or great artwork, substance.
Yeah. Well, so I think if I heard you properly, again, you're breaking up a bit, but in terms of some things that are working well, I mean, unfortunately, it's hard to sort out some of this stuff. I think that, X-Men Fantastic Four, that issue that came out, I mean, there's a little bit of a crossover. We got a good writer in Chip Zdarsky. We've got the Dobsons. We've got, some nice art in general, and that's a good book. And when you read that, you're reminded that you can bring stories together. You can have little mini events. You can have positive things happening, and turn out an entertaining story. And so these pockets can exist. I think the one thing that maybe is important to remember about comics right now is 1 year ago, almost exactly this time, the X-Men universe was in the absolute doghouse, and people were just, decrying how it will never be salvaged again. This was its lowest point. And 6 months later, it's selling amazing, and Hickman can do no wrong, and this is the best X-Men we've had in a decade or more, and it's just so much excitement. I would do a video on Dawn of X or any of the House of X titles, and it would it would, I mean, immediately I'm getting massive hits, and people just couldn't have enough of it. They were very interested. And now today, here we are, less than 6 months later, and people are like, "Ooh, too many titles at once. Quality is dropping." I don't know. Things can change positively or negative in comics on a dime. So whatever we're stuck with today, it's not what we're stuck with forever. And so I think it's important to remember that if it sucks today, it might be great 6 months from now. It might we could go any direction. You look at Hawkman, Vendetti. You look at the first issue of his Justice League looked quite nice. I mean, these are good stories. Maybe this all gets wiped out in a few months by 5G. Who knows? But there's a lot of good signs of comics. I'll be more worried when comics can't recover as quickly as they have. Right now, things are able to bounce back. I just wish it didn't bounce the other way too.
Yep. Do I sound good now? Sorry, I gotta keep on asking.
You're good. You're good at the moment. It's very touch and go.
All right, but I think the biggest problem is that what led into, for Marvel anyway, was you had the wrong people in the right positions that made it be so lickety split, instantaneous, as what everyone else in comic says, instant woke. That I think that so many people are now just so assuming that's what it's always going to be, when it was just, in the long run, bad circumstances for us, the people that obviously more cared about ideology over comics.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of things happen there. I think with Marvel in particular, but everywhere. I mean, the biggest thing that kind of changed, and I don't think it has as much to do with ideology as it does just people maybe put in positions they weren't ready for. Back in historical, both Marvel and DC, you had editors who, first of all, were not overburdened with titles. They kept the plate clean, so they had time. And there was a lot of mentorship. When new people came in, you sat in the bulletin, or the bullpen, sorry, the assistant editor was a job that had a lot of coaching and help. And it seemed like a lot of people were kind of thrown into the deep end with very little money, very little mentorship or help from their senior management. And they were asked to kind of manage a portfolio. And so that corresponds with social media kind of coming up, and a lot of people are accessible. So these comics come out with with untested talent in a lot of cases, or people who aren't really being helped to guide. A Max Bemis kind of situation with Moon Knight would never have occurred 10, 12 years ago, because there would have been a lot of structures in place to prevent somebody from flaming out and ranting on social media. You wouldn't have had the Chuck Wendig kind of embarrassment to go on 10 years ago, because there was a good structure in place to prevent that from happening. And today, it's so much content shoving out the door. So these targets that people have to hit, where when you're publishing just dozens and dozens of comics on a weekly basis, you're gonna lose a lot of controls, and that's what we've seen.
Right, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of pre-Jim Shooter Marvel. From what I heard, how it was a mess. You had people who were like late on delays, all this stuff. They treat it like a frat house, from what I understand. And that's why when Jim Shooter came on board, he right in the everything and be like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. No, we need to get back up together and stuff. And from what I understand, that was one of the initial reasons people hated him, because he killed the part.
Yeah, I think there's some truth there. I mean, Jim Shooter ran a very tight ship, and what a lot of people ought to remember is, publishing in general is kind of the Wild West. It always has been, not just comics, just magazines, everything. And Jim Shooter came in at a time when businesses were in expansion mode, like a lot of other companies, a lot of other publishers were, and he ran it like a business. And there were good parts and bad parts. A lot of people overly praised Jim Shooter of being kind of the hero of comics. I mean, he left a bloody trail behind him, and not all that is good. If you took Jim Shooter, you put him in a position of power today, he would be sued and fired within 6 months. I mean, it would not work.
You're the reason he was burned effigy, or had a thing of him burning effigy by John Byrne.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, he made waves, and you can argue, hey, that's what the comic industry needs. It needs somebody to kind of beat people with a stick, and the answer is, in the middle. Like, some beating, yes, maybe not that much beating, but I think it was more of a frat house sort of atmosphere, certainly. But what we have today, it's less, it's almost less of a frat house and more of almost it's like a panic house. I mean, I can tell you, I watch editors, and I took a beating on a different show, saying, some nice things about one of the editors had done, but the editors live in almost perpetual fear because they're just shoving books out the door as fast as they can. They have no guardrails, no control. Now they're not getting fired, but they're also working for dirt in a lot of cases. And I'm not saying we should feel sorry for people who do bad things. I'm just saying that we should recognize the environment, and the environment is it's kind of a panic zoo right now.
Yeah, no kidding. And I agree with you completely. This is why I always look at it like this. Treat a person like a human being up until they decide to be an asshole to you. And even then, try and take the circumstances into account first before you decide to be an asshole back at them. Because you never know, they could be stressed out, bad day. And I think it's this whole, never forgive, never forget mindset on both sides that has caused a lot of this constant feuding across the board. Like, you not believe how many times
I mean, people hang on to things too long. I'm not making excuses for anybody's terrible behavior. Terrible behavior is terrible behavior. But there is a point where somebody makes a mistake, or they do. I mean, if you're trying to run a business, or you're trying to look at the long game as opposed to just be angry for the day, you need to ask yourself the question of why things are happening. Why is this editor behaving the way they are? Why is this pro behaving the way they are? Why is this YouTube streamer behaving the way they are? Why is this happening? Is an interesting question. And if you just constantly live in a world of just, nope, I'm going to be pissed, then that it doesn't really ever afford anything an ability to change. It just keeps everybody pissed.
Yep. I mean, how Dan Slott was when he was on Twitter for so long. They finally got him off. Ended up writing one of his final Spider-Man story. Was one of the best he's ever done. It's like it's basically like Twitter, social media has probably done a lot of good in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, Twitter is a time killer for sure, and I think it allows kind of the worst instincts of somebody to come out. It goes back to what we were saying. I think there's some good comics, there's some good people, there's some lousy people. I think if your goal, and people mistake me for being kind of a fence sitter or middle of the road person, that's not the case. Bad behavior is bad behavior. I just think that we have to figure out smarter ways to go at it, because just yelling about it is not working. I mean, I think there's plenty of evidence that is not working.
Exactly, and take a pot shot. Sometimes dick memes are not the answer, and if you do them, you just want to make things worse.
Yeah, exactly.
But
no, I think that there's good things. Yeah.
Yep. But on a different subject, because recently I just got a hold of the New 52 Deathstroke omnibus, although ironically enough, it's the DCU version, not the New 52 version. And it got me thinking about different people handling characters differently. Like, first of all, I just ask you right away off the bat, what did you think about how Deathstroke's been handled between New 52 and the end of Christopher Priest's run?
Well, I liked Deathstroke quite a bit. I thought that was a good comic. I think Priest brings a lot of great things to the table. I think that there's a writer that you should push really hard to get on another book as fast as you can. I thought that was a great run. I liked what he did. I liked the long-term planning and thinking. Even read interviews of him. He was surprised he got as much time as he did with that book. But he was grateful, and I think his fans are grateful. I think that was one of the better runs. I think that and Hawkman over the last 2 years are definitely books. If you're a DC fan, you got to check out.
But what about beforehand, the pre stuff, like New 52? What?
Yeah, you mean the New 52, the Rob Liefeld era?
Rob Liefeld, Kyle Higgins, Justin Jordan, Tony Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't care for the New 52 rendition of Deathstroke. I don't think there was a lot of substance to it, honestly. I think it was much more of a shallow character back then. I really enjoyed I really enjoyed what Priest did. I think the character itself is very interesting. I think Deathstroke is a really clever character. I think Slade is a great character, and I like a lot of what a lot of what you can do with that character. I feel like if a lot of writers tend to write him as just like, I'm a tough mercenary and I'm going to do tough mercenary things, and I think there's a lot more depth you can do. And I was glad Priest was able to tap into that.
Making him a full-on good guy either, though, like Wolfman had done once.
Yeah, I mean, I think you gotta. Deathstroke is most interesting when it's a Shades of Grey character with a bad, bad compass that also does very destructive things. I think that makes for a very interesting kind of anti-hero character, not a comedy character, and I think that the comics needs some of those. I think they sell well when they're done well, but I think it's very hard. It's very tempting for writers to go the wrong direction with them.
Definitely, and well, I'm sorry. I know we're all over the place, but this is more of a train of conscious. This is more of a stream of conscious stream tonight.
Yeah, hard at me. It's all good.
Yeah, but also gotta say, especially about with death metal and everything, the fact they now pretty much revealed how Hell Risen is going to end. First of all, were you really that surprised that it looks like they're going more back to the Batman Who Laughs, or did you really think they were going to stick with Lex?
No, I mean, I think they will stick with Lex. I mean, I think we're getting Hell Arisen, so we're going to have a tit for tat between the two of them, kind of as two big forces within the DC universe. They're bringing Leviathan into that mix too, so why not? I think that will be kind of the just kind of a good villain kind of to carry us between now and Death Metal. Death Metal has every indication of just being, a crazy, over the top, all the craziest things that didn't get done in metal we're going to do in Death Metal. I mean, the interesting part is where Death Metal ends. Does that then take us into 5G? Are we going from an event to an event? God, I hope not, but it certainly seems like we are.
Right. Now, as a store owner, how well, especially of young adult graphic novels, because those first ones were so, well, again, political and everything, but it looks like the more recent ones have been more truly for kids without shoving an agenda down your throat. Yeah. And same with Black Label. I mean, how well have they been selling? How well has your customers been reacting to them?
No, I mean, Black Label does very well. Black Label's great. The young adult stuff is not by the big publishers. The big publishers are not cracking the code on what it means to sell to a young adult audience. I think Scholastic is dominating that, and I think you're seeing, I mean, even Disney is starting to have success with young adult publishing as Disney, not through Marvel. They're doing Disney princesses, and they're doing kind of their independent stories. Netflix is going to put out some books here pretty soon, kind of with the same mentality of Klaus and those stories. I think that nobody has cracked the code on, DC and Marvel have not figured out young adult on a big way. They can sell some stories. They've made improvements, certainly, but I think they're trying to get current writers, current editorial, current staff to pivot and write stories that they do not know how to write. And it's not working for them. And they're either going to have to give up or bring in completely new talent to run those lines. Black Label works great. That works great for DC.
Yeah, that's a shame because like Green Lantern Legacy, the back, Balthazar and Franco, you would have thought that would have at least done something, but that is a shame because some of the more recent ones have been good. So that's a shame.
Yeah, it just goes back to the same thing. I think there's some good ideas there, some good IP there. I think it could work, but if you're going to appeal to that audience, you got to go find some people who know that audience. You got to find the whole team, the writers, the editors, and the whole thing. If you don't have that, it's not going to work.
Black Label. What do you think about?
Yeah, none of that. We're plagued by audio. No, not really.
Testing, testing. Jeez, I think I
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah, I think we're being defeated by audio tonight.
How about now?
It's still
Hold on. Let me try now. How about this?
okay. You're good at the moment. Yes.
I'm looking at my.
You're good for a second.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, I was at saying about how. What did you think about the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey Black Label? Because I gotta say, is why wasn't it me?
Yeah, you mean the one that, oh, sorry. Is all about. And what you've got is, hey, he's back. Oh, the audio problems are back with you, unfortunately.
Okay. How about now?
It's okay, but
Okay.
it seems really, really spotty.
So I'm trying. I'm trying.
It's okay. Well, I'll make this promise with you. We can come back and try this again another night at some point too, soon.
Okay. Wait. How about now? How am I?
No, man, you're unfortunately pretty good.
Okay. Yeah. We can try this another night. I gotta figure out what's wrong with this.
Yeah, it's you know, loose cable. I think you know, I think we've all been there. You know, it's happened.
No problem. So, okay. Well, you know, you can first for me and you're
Yeah,
that.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I've been hearing it. Maybe we'll try this another time.